So this lesson will be over the distributive property. It should be a review of what it means to distribute and how we distribute. So let's first talk about what is the distributive property and what it looks like. The distributive property is multiplying across addition. So if you look at the four examples below, you'll see various ways that can be represented. If you look at the first example, you have a number on the outside of a set of parentheses. That is your typical setup for distribution. If you see that in a problem, that is your cue to distribute. When we go to distribute, what we want to do is take the outside number, or in this case the outside variable, and multiply it to the first term. So we'll have A times B. Once you multiply the outside number to the first term, you need to go back and multiply it to the second term. You'll have A times C. So when we distribute, this expression here will become A times B plus, make sure you carry over your plus sign, A times C. So this is the simplified expression after we have distributed. The same thing applies with subtraction. You're going to go to the outside number, or in this case variable, and multiply the outside variable to the first term, A times B. Make sure you carry over the subtraction sign, go back to your outside term, multiply it to the second term, A times C. So this expression simplifies down to this after we have distributed. So let's put this with numbers. When it comes to numbers, how will this look? Very similar. The only difference is when you have numbers, you'll have to take the extra steps to simplify down your expressions. When you have a bunch of variables, there will rarely be a need to simplify down. So looking at your outside number here, you're going to take the 3, multiply to the first term, 3 times 2. Make sure you carry over your addition sign, take the outside number, multiply to the second term, 3 times 5. We'll go into detail about how to simplify that in a couple slides, but for now I just want to make sure we understand how to distribute the process. This guy over here, when we go to distribute, you take your outside number, drop it off to the first term. 4 times 9, carry over your subtraction sign, 4 times 7. And once again, we will end up simplifying this portion down. I just want to make sure for now you understand the process of how to distribute. So distribution can make mental math easier. I know sometimes we'll be in the grocery store or at work or wherever it may be, and we'll get something like 7 times 49, and majority of us don't know what 7 times 49 is off the top of our head. However, if we can rewrite this problem using the distributive property, it becomes a little bit easier to do mental math. We can rewrite 49 as 40 plus 9. Now if I asked you to distribute that, you could probably tell me what 7 times 40 was. You could probably tell me what 7 times 9 was, and then simplify down from there. Just becomes a little bit easier to do mental math, so that's one of the benefits of distributing. Rewrite 6 times 22 using the distributive property. So looking at 6 and 22. 6 isn't that intimidating of a number, but 22, a lot of us don't know much about the multiples of 22. So if we rewrite 22 as 20 plus 2, we can just distribute. Most of us know what 6 times 20 is, plus 6 times 12. So 120 plus 12 will give us what 6 times 22 is. 210 times 5. 5 is not an intimidating number, but 210 is kind of intimidating. So if we rewrite 210 using the distributive property, it'll become a little bit easier on us. We can write 210 as 200 plus 10, and then simplify down from there. So now let's practice evaluating expressions using this distributive property. So we're going to go ahead and distribute these terms, and then we're going to simplify. When you go to simplify, make sure you follow order of operations. That is key. So our first problem, we have 7 times the quantity of t squared plus 3t minus 5. So we're going to take the outside number and drop it off to these three terms. Okay, if there was 4 terms in the parentheses, you would drop the 7 off to the 4 terms. If there was 2 terms, you drop it off to the 2. You take the outside number and distribute it to however many terms are inside the parentheses. Make sure you don't drop off your signs. So we'll have 7 times t squared plus 7 times 3t minus 7 times 5. And that is what that will look like before we simplify down. Now, if you can do all this mental math in your head, you can probably skip this step here. I'm just displaying it so you know where I'm getting numbers. So 7 times t squared just becomes 7t squared, plus 7 times 3t just becomes 21t, negative 7 times 5, negative 35. That is your final answer. Next one, negative 3 times 2 minus 5g. Now that negative 3 is wrapped in parentheses because we want to make sure you understand you're not just distributing the 3, you have to distribute the negative on that 3 as well. So make sure when you go to distribute, you have those negative rules in the back of your head. A negative times a negative is a positive. A negative times a positive is a negative. So keep that in mind. Negative 3 times 2 minus negative 3 times 5g. So that is what the problem looks like after I distribute. I have not simplified. Once again, if you can do that simplifying in your head, you can skip this step. I'm just writing it down so everyone can see, can follow where I'm getting my numbers from. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. And then negative 3 times 5g is a negative 15g. Notice I did not drop off this minus sign, I just brought it down. So the last thing that looks kind of weird about this problem is this double negative here. Hopefully you guys remember that a double negative makes a positive. So my final answer will be negative 6 plus 15g. Here's a couple more to practice. We have negative 2 times negative 3t plus 15. So just to distribute, I'm going to take my outside number and drop it off at the negative 3t. Negative 2 times negative 3t plus negative 2 times 15. Once I do that, I'm going to simplify using my order of operations. Negative 2 times negative 3t becomes a positive 6t. Negative 2 times 15 is a negative 30. 6t minus 30 is your final answer. And here comes the evil fraction. Do not panic with the fraction. We will deal with it. You have to be comfortable working with fractions. Do not be terrified of them. So, we have 1/4 as our outside number in this case. So I'm going to start by taking the 1/4 and distributing it just like I would a whole number. I'll have 1/4 times 16 minus 1/4 times 24y. Okay, so far so good. I've distributed. Now I need to focus on simplifying. If you need to, you can rewrite your whole numbers over 1 to change them into fractions essentially. So 1/4 times 16 minus 1/4 times 24 over y. Some of you may need to do that, others may be okay working with it. Completely optional. Just want to make sure you realize that that's something you can do. So now that you have a fraction times a fraction, go ahead and simplify. 1 times 16 is 16, 4 times 1 is 4. Minus 1 times 24y, 24y, 4 times 1, 4. So far so good. Now I have a subtraction problem, or actually, let's go ahead and reduce our fractions. 16 over 4 can reduce to 4. Minus, don't drop off your minus sign, 24y divided by 4 becomes 6y. Final answer is 4 minus 6y. And now it's your turn to practice. Here are a couple problems. Like I said, if you want to pause the video, take a second to do these. Make sure you get the right answers. If you have any questions, make sure you come and see me for clarification. Good luck.